Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rick Sterling from Western IM, and thank you for all coming to a new IMCC presentation that we're having here in the month of December, early in the month of December. Really excited today to have Lea Beeken with us today. Lea is not only a wonderful presenter and what I somebody I consider a friend, but she's also the incoming president-elect for the Edmonton chapter of ARMA. So thank you to Lea and thank you to the Edmonton chapter for allowing this session to be done as part of IMCC. Let me see. Wanted to again say coming up, we have some other great things coming up on the IMCC side, just down the road. This middle of this month, you'll be getting that information soon. Our own Troy Sawyer, who you know from our presentations on IMCC, Troy will be doing his usual kind of Christmas special this year for ARMA. And it'll this year, I think Santa's going to have a lot of trouble with FOIP requests. He's got FOIP requests, people looking for freedom of information request on whether their kids are on the naughty and nice list and all kinds of things. So it'll be a really great presentation, I think, as part of our Christmas kind of special. And then coming up in January and February, in January, I will be there with good friends of mine, uh, Ellie Kim and Dara Hoffman, and we'll be doing a presentation on the new ARMA principles, the updates to the ARMA principles. And then the next month in February, Lewis Eisen will be doing a follow-up presentation talking about policies related to some of those things. So it'll be a really great start for our kind of 2026 year on IMCC. So that's all I wanted to say. I wanted to also thank my colleagues and partners in Western IM for allowing us to do this kind of IMCC stuff along the way. Everybody works pretty hard at that. Troy, thanks for always being there to make sure the presentations are working and everything's set up properly. And Brian for doing um, marketing material and things like that along the way. Really appreciate all of you for supporting us across the country. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for all of you for being here. It's a big attendance today for this presentation. So really excited to have everybody here. And Lea, I'm not going to introduce you. I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself when I turn it over to you, which is going to happen right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And Santa's got to get with the times. We're not allowed to have FOIP requests anymore in Alberta. We have access to information requests. Thank you. What you should know about me is I'm a big fan of privacy. And when I think of privacy, I think of myself getting home at the end of the day, throwing off my work clothes, putting on my comfy clothes, sitting with my husband, watching the Oilers lose without anyone bugging me or wanting anything from me. That's what I think of when I think of privacy, and maybe you do too. Unfortunately, privacy legislation isn't about that. It's about something quite different. So I'm going to try and talk to you about privacy legislation generally. I might mention POPA, which is our new Alberta Act, Protection of Privacy Act, the Protection of Privacy Act. But if you're not under POPA, you might be under PIPA. I don't even remember what PIPA stands for, but it's for businesses. Or if you're in another part of the country, you might have your own acronym. But I'm going to try and talk about the concepts that all of these acts have. And then I'll give you my number one best secret at the end to be a privacy expert. And hopefully this isn't too simple for you guys. I'm really just trying to say if I knew nothing about the concept of privacy law, what would I need to know? So having said that, it's really not just about following the law. And it's about being respectful about people's personal information. It's how we handle, and now the word data comes up, and I have to talk about data. Our old FOIP Act only talked about records. The new act talks about records, but it also talks about information as being the content of records and data as being a special new thing all on its own. I'm not going to talk too much about data, but you'll see the word data come up here. Really, just think of it as information about people, like a big bucket. Let's just call it all information. Records, information, data, it's just all information. So when people give us information in a form or however we get it from them, they want us to manage that in a way that protects them, doesn't give away information about them willy-nilly. And I'm also using this language of guardian, that when we collect personal information from people, we become the guardian of that information. Other legislations like the European Union talks about custodians of information. Here in Alberta, we talk about privacy officers, but the whole concept is around we're there to protect their information. And I'm going to walk through what we're talking about here. We're protecting personal information. So here's the first acronym you need to know. PI or PII is personally identifiable information. So it's any recorded detail, so little snippet or great big report or anything in between that can be used to identify a specific person. It's about an identifiable person. That's the asset you're responsible for guarding. So we have to first know what's our job. Our job one is how do we ensure that information is used, disclosed, collected appropriately. So I have some examples here of personal information or personally identifiable information, such as your name, like Rick. You're Rick Sterling, that identifies you, right? Your home address. So for me, my home address is something I really want to keep very close. People shouldn't just get to know my home address. Financial information, my health history, even my fingerprint or facial recognition of my face. That's all personal information about me. So hopefully those are obvious. Our act really lists out many examples, but you can't go wrong with just thinking recorded information about an identifiable individual. That's what we're about here, the protection of that. But just as sensitive, there are other things you should know. If I had an opinion about Rick, that's his personal information. So if I said Rick is an excellent guy and I wrote it down, it's got to be recorded, not just verbal. If it's recorded and it's my opinion about someone else, it's their personal information, their employment history, and we're really quite twitchy about identifying numbers like our Alberta Health Services number or an employee number, because those are often keys to databases full of data and information and records about identifiable people. So the first thing you need to know about privacy laws, at its heart, it's all about this. This is what we're looking to protect. Now, one thing as you go through this process, you must have authority to collect information in the first place, personal information in the first place. So I'm from a school division in Alberta. My authority to collect, use, or share any personally identifiable information, I have to have legal authority to do it. I'm calling it here your passport, but you must have that in place and understand your purpose for collection is tied to that authority. It's a specific law. So if you're a municipality, I would assume the Municipalities Act would be what governs your collection of personal information. Whatever it is, though, you need to know what it allows you to do, and it's pretty clear. And here's a guiding rule for you if you're in the position where people say, is it okay if I collect Rick's Netflix account details? Your first thing would, why are you doing that? But also, is it authorized under our authority to collect that information? And it should be tied to the purpose you have to exist. So for us as a school board, we say our purpose is to provide education in a safe environment. So all our collection has to tie to that, has to be clear connection to that. If you're ever thinking, gee, I don't know why we'd be asking this, it's probably a good idea to say, well, let's talk about purpose of collection here. This is a trick question I often ask my principals. We have quite a detailed registration form for public education. But lots and lots of personal information is collected, not just about the student, but their parents. And there's medical stuff. There's all kinds of stuff on that form. And they sign it at the end. And I say to them, why do parents sign the registration form at the end? And they said, well, that's their consent to give us the information. We don't need their consent. We have the authority to collect it. They're signing that the information they're giving us is true, complete, and correct. But if they want a public education, we need that information to provide it. So this is a really important starting point for you if you're on a journey of trying to figure out privacy in your organization is what is your authority. So that's step one. Then it is about responsible collection. So whenever we gather or receive personal information and take it into our databases or our file folders or our SharePoint site or wherever we're putting it, here are two things to keep in mind. In general, you should collect directly from the person themselves, not through another kind of backdoor to get information. This is a common principle of privacy. And the second is only collect what you need for the specific task you are performing, right? You don't, because maybe I might want someday your credit card number, I'm going to collect it. You only collect the information you need specific to what you're in business to do or what you're authorized to do. So that's a really key point. Now I'm going right along here, Rick. Am I getting any questions or comments so far?
No, there's nothing in chat or anything yet.
Okay, I
Yeah,
don't want
we're good.
to blow you guys out of the water. So let me know if I'm going too fast. So once you've collected your data, your information, your records, all of these things, if they're about an identifiable individual, we use it. We collected it for a purpose to run educational programming in a safe environment, to provide a service, or to make decisions. This is the use phase of the life cycle of records, information, and data. And the golden rule is you can only use it for the same reason you collected it. So you have to be consistent. So I can't collect a bunch of information from a parent to give a safe environment to educate their child and then go off and sell the data to some marketing company. That is not my authority. I don't have the authority to do this. So this is the golden rule of use. It can only be used for the original reason it was collected. There is an exception, and the exception does come into play for us quite a bit. It can also be used for a consistent purpose. So if it's still in that lane, a safe environment to provide educational programming to students under the Education Act, that is okay. But if you use it for any other purpose, that's a violation of trust. So this is how we show respect for people's personal information, is through this. This is the tricky part, and I agree with the statement that this is one of the high-risk stages in your data journey, which is when you start sharing it. And it's really important that you only disclose personal information outside of your public body or your organization if the law allows you to. So it should have, for example, we're allowed to share information with the Minister of Education. It's baked into our law, right? We're allowed to share information with parental consent, provided it's a consistent use. We don't go too far afield with this, but if the parent asks us to share information with Alberta Health Services, we would look for a signed parental consent to do that disclosure. Legal authorization here is really clear outside of your organization. So if we're giving it to another system, another organization, it's really important that we know the rules around who gets to see it. And the person it's about has a right of access to it as well. That's a really key point. So if a parent wants to see the student record of their child, they have a right of access to that. There's rules around how that actually works, but they have a right to it. Really important that we always share only the minimum amount required for the purpose. So, just being cautious that whatever we share, we know what we're sharing and why. Another example is occasionally we have law enforcement agents come to our schools looking for specific personal information. Well, they actually have authority to request that of us, provided they're in an active investigation. And it's not a fishing expedition, it's an active investigation. And we ask them to put that in writing before we disclose. So we have a form, Service Alberta put out a form a long time ago about how to get that in writing for the law enforcement official. So it's important to know in your world, how can you disclose the personal information you've collected? Actually, just as a question, could people throw in the chat, are you from a school division, from a municipality, from a post-secondary or something else? Just so I know who I'm talking to. I should have asked this right out of the gate. A municipality, post-secondary, school divisions, great. Universities. So what I'm saying is I don't know what RAN is. Okay, thank you for that. A not-for-profit is interesting, if I saw that correctly, NPO. So the concepts apply if you're like a private school is under PIPA, but not-for-profits don't appear to be covered anywhere in Alberta law right now. We expect they will be moved under PIPA, which is the same privacy provisions that we have for businesses. The concepts here still apply. I believe these are just universal concepts. But if I say something where you go, no, we don't have to do that, or that doesn't apply to me, I'd be curious to know about that. Thank you for telling me that. Okay, so we talked about secure transfer. Now, when it comes to sharing information within your organization, so you've collected it, we collected all this information through a registration form. It's been entered into a database that people have access to. We call Power School. Yes, we were in, we didn't get breached through the Power School breach, but it was a near miss and quite a wake-up call. But all that data is transferred into a database, becomes data elements. We still have the record, the original signed registration form, which is put into a content management system. So you can see where information, data, and records is like a big ball of stuff. And I'm just going to try and call it information to encompass all of that. But let's say you have a staff member who needs access to that data, needs access to that database to do their job. There's really only one principle for employees or any of the other defined people who work for your organization. It's need to know. If you need to know this information in order to do your tasks, your specific authorized job duties. Yeah. I somehow I managed to say things twice here, but I guess I wanted to emphasize that it's really important you understand this piece. Need to know. And it applies to everyone in every role. You're the superintendent of schools. You do not need to know what was on that individual registration form. That is not part of your job description. So it doesn't matter if you're top of the pyramid or someone working at the frontline level. Do you need to see that information to perform your job duties? It's not a right, it's a responsibility. And it can cause a serious breach of trust if people have access to information and they're looking at it for other reasons than their job. And I like to say to people, no one's position description includes curiosity. That's not on anyone's position description. You need to make sure when you're going into these databases or document management systems or even paper file folders, you have a reason to do it that's associated with your position description. We haven't seen any significant fines on the protection of privacy side in Alberta, but on the Health Information Act side, we have seen significant fines, and most of those are tied to personal reasons. My boyfriend and I broke up. I wanted to learn more about what his new girlfriend is doing, so I went and looked at her health information. That's definitely not in your job description. And I have to tell my staff too, even if your child is in the school division, you don't have a right of access to their data in your job duties. You have to go through the authorized ways to get access to that data. And it is a serious privacy breach, and it can result in significant fines. So it's important everyone hears this. And even Health Information Act, the custodians there took it so seriously that they would start to run audit checks on people. So if I, Lea Beeken, looked up someone whose last name was also Beeken, they'd check it. And they'd follow up with my supervisor to see why I was doing that. So it's important to know this is a statement all your staff should be aware of. Okay, another thing that comes with privacy, especially in this digital world of ours, is that we have to protect our information assets wherever they live. And in some ways, it feels like our paper assets are the simplest to secure now. Wherever they live, they're in a locked filing cabinet behind a locked door, and people would have to actually go to the building to get to them. But with something like PowerSchool, you have a criminal who can reach everyone in the world from their home. And so that means our security around our digital assets has to be really robust, because that's where the crime is happening now. I'm glad it says this, that we have to maintain reasonable security arrangements. And that gives you the clout to say, in order to follow the law, we have to have these things in place. And the privacy management program actually specifies some specific cybersecurity things that have to be in place. And we have now both the duty and the responsibility to put these measures in place. And the goal is always to safeguard the information from unauthorized access, use, destruction, and also manipulation at all times. So how do we do that? We have 3 layers of defense. One is that the rules are clear and the internal policies are clear with respect to the management of personally identifiable information. So code of conduct about curiosity is not a reason to look at something. Make sure you have a clear desk policy in your organization. Everyone is expected to keep their desk clear. Everyone locks their computer when they walk away. These are some of the kind of basic things that can help administratively to protect personal data, especially in a school division where you have computers in places where you have public as well. And so you have to really manage those assets. Physical safeguards. Well, you certainly want to make sure your paper assets, information assets are protected in locked file cabinets and secure rooms. And your servers are also secure. That's a really important point too. And then finally, the technical safeguards. So if you have a computer system and someone left it open and it's open to an app like PeopleSoft that has employee information on it or whatever, then it's a breach, right? If someone could sit down and start going in there, you've allowed the door to be unlocked. Strong passwords is a tough conversation because the new technology can rip through passwords very quickly. And the word now from Microsoft is long is more important. So, all the uppercase, lowercase symbols, all that doesn't matter. 15 characters or more is what they say matters. And that has to do with how the passwords are protected by encryption. So try and help your staff be comfortable with typing for a little bit before they can log on. And system access controls and encryption, all of these are important. And when it comes to privacy and cybersecurity, we really need to champion the work of cybersecurity and promote them. We can't do it ourselves, but we can give them the authority to do the work they want to do. So that's how it's working in my division, that because of our privacy requirements, we get budget for cybersecurity, which is nice. Getting money is always nice. Okay, now I got to talk about what happens when the path of your data information records is broken. What's a privacy breach? So privacy breach occurs when you lose track of the personal information you've collected as an organization or a public body. So if you lose it, somebody gets into it who shouldn't be in there, or you disclosed it to someone who shouldn't have gotten it. Those are all called privacy breaches. And they can happen for lots of reasons, but in my experience with this, Lord, I can't tell you how many email privacy breaches I have dealt with. And it's all because people are working so fast. They're not checking who am I sending this to? Are they the right one, etc. Human error is by far the biggest cause of privacy breaches. And I would say that malicious threat actors are out there, and they do try and exploit humans to make mistakes. But usually privacy breaches truly are just somebody made a mistake. We try and prevent both. And keep in mind, we're not aiming to be perfect here. We just want to show we've done our best to help our employees protect privacy as much as is reasonable in the circumstances. So I do want to talk about a few common real world scenarios to avoid. And I think we've had 22 breaches so far this year, and 20 of them were emails sent to the wrong person. But because of the new law in place, we have to actually look at each one and make a determination about whether we have to notify. So yeah, I get why it happens. I just wish we had better solutions. I do try and encourage people to use yet another mail merge or a similar mail merge tool so they're not manually entering. And of course, always use CC rather than to everyone. We've had privacy breaches where everyone's personal email was disclosed. It's just a work in progress to teach everyone this. You definitely want all your mobile devices encrypted. There's still a target for thieves. If you go to the casino with a laptop on the back seat, you can definitely expect someone to steal that laptop. And if it's, yeah, thank you. I did mean blind CC. If you lose a laptop that's unencrypted, it can be a horrible mess to figure that out. Was there personal information on it? Do I have an inventory of the personal information? Who do I have to notify? Just avoid this by ensuring company devices or division devices are secure. The snooping thing does happen. It comes back in weird ways. Like I was in court with my ex-wife and she shared something about my kid that she shouldn't know, that only the school should know. And then it comes back to you, how did the ex-wife find this out or whatever? Really important we train our staff who are disclosing when they are allowed to disclose. Dumpster diving used to be a thing a long time ago when the FOIP Act first came out. It doesn't seem to be as big a breach possibility, although it absolutely can still happen. So use designated shredding bins for physical records. And now the critical alert, reporting and real risk. So under our privacy law in Alberta, under POPA, if a privacy breach occurs, our response must be immediate. That's true for us. Maybe it's not true across the country, but we have to assess the risk and we have to do it right away. And they have this standard called ROCE. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Real risk of significant harm. And we have to decide if there is a real risk of significant harm. And they also include like an asterisk that a reasonable person would determine. So we get to be reasonable about this. If there is a real risk of significant harm, we're legally required to report that breach to that person and to the regulatory bodies. So here are some examples, like if it could possibly lead to identity theft. For example, the breach included social insurance numbers. People would get very excited about that because whole identities are built off of social insurance numbers. Financial loss. Well, we happen to lose your credit card data. I hope this never happens because you're all under, what's that standard for credit cards? Mm. Very high standards of security around credit card numbers. Thank you, PCI. So hopefully your organization is not actually managing credit card numbers. They've outsourced that to a bank or to a provider to take that risk for you. For us, humiliation is a significant issue with kids. Like if a student's been diagnosed with a particular disorder and other students learn about that, that could be quite humiliating for that student, right? And then damage to employment or reputation. I can't think of an example offhand, but they have a list. And if you're wondering where it comes from, the OIPC put out a guide. I'll see if I can find it for you guys in 2023, connected to PIPA, which apparently does have this same mandatory reporting requirement. And they actually detail, here's how you evaluate the real risk of significant harm. Here are the factors that increase the risk, and here are the mitigating factors, etc. So at the end, I'll try and throw that link in the chat for you. But it is a term that's in common usage. I don't know if it's in common usage outside of Alberta, but I think BC uses it too. And so it's on you. Like today, we went through 3 of these, and on all of them, we said, don't think there's a real risk of significant harm, and here's why. Sign off on it, put it aside. And the reason we do that is we could still get someone who is involved in it to complain to the OIPC, and we would have to defend our decision about this. And sorry, I also have to say that our regulator in Alberta is the Office of Information and Privacy Commissioner. So if I say OIPC, I'm referring to her. But we have something different now with POPA in Alberta. This is the Minister of Technology and Innovation's baby, which is interesting that it moved there. So it is important to know who your regulators are and what the reporting has to be. So, Rick, are there any questions so far that I should respond to?
There's been a couple in the Q&A section.
Okay.
Do you want to go through these?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I'll read them off here. So just to confirm, you're saying that this goes back to the signatures on forms. At the end of the form, which residents complete as part of the application process, serves only to confirm the information that they provided is accurate. It does not serve as consent for use. Is that correct?
That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah. So our reg form, I can find the actual blurb, but we're relying on them to tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That they are identifying all the guardians, because that can be a real tricky topic down the road. And that if anything changes, they will tell us. But we don't ask their permission to collect it. It's if you want a publicly funded education, we need this information to provide it.
Okay. Another question here. When you're mentioning parental right to view PII, am I correct in understanding that only exists for minor students?
Yes, unless there's a guardianship order or something in place for adults with disabilities. But in our legislation, the parent has a right of access to their child's information until they're 18. Or in the school system, they can declare themselves independent at age 16, and the parent loses their right of access.
Right. Okay. When a form collects emergency contacts, should we be concerned that the individual's name hasn't provided their consent to have this information? Should we ask them for consent when it comes to emergency contact?
I don't believe so. It's a not required field on our form. So if the parent doesn't provide one, they could still submit. So it's a discretion that the parent exercises. I don't even know how we would go about asking them, are you okay with being the contact? I have heard like, well, the kid was in an accident, they're going to the hospital, we can't get hold of the parents. called to contact and they're like, I want nothing to do with this family. Okay, we'll
No.
take you off, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't believe we get consent for that. I know we don't, sorry.
Yep.
We don't do it.
From your example of the registration form, what are the best practices for getting a signature? Think maybe at a contact.
So if it's unsigned, we will not register the child.
Hmm.
Digitally, we do it through Adobe Sign. So unless the form is completed, all the required fields, they can't sign it. And until they sign it, they can't submit it. So it's basically, it's not optional. You must give us that statement that you're telling us the truth.
Who do you think in an organization should be accountable for an information security classification, public key protected?
So that's part of the PMP program, and I do have another presentation all about that. But if you have a functional cybersecurity team, it'd be useful to have them in the mix. But more importantly is to have the business owners in the mix, the people who actually know what their assets are, their information assets. This does not just include personally identifiable information. All our division information assets need someone to look at them and say, this is internal use only. This is confidential. This is restricted. And I can't make that up for you. If you're in HR, you have to tell me. So I think that's one. I have already done this. I've talked to my superintendent and said, I need every functional unit in our organization to work with me to determine what these classifications should be. And we're taking more a concern about disclosure approach to that rather than a cybersecurity approach to that.
Great. And the last one here in the Q&A section, when we work with vendors, PeopleSoft, PowerSchool, Dayforce, what should we be doing to support compliance to our privacy program?
So step one is the contract, and it's tricky with vendors because often it's a terms of use. You don't have any input into the terms of use. With the recent PowerSchool debacle and the ministerial orders here in Alberta, we're required to have an annual educational audit of any vendors handling student information. How on earth we're going to do that, I have no idea. And my comment up the line was, if the government of Alberta wants this done, they should do it. And actually hire the vendors for us and do the screening for us. And they might have the clout to actually get a contract in place. If you can get a contract in place, then you can start using standard cybersecurity language like I will abide by, trying to think of one off the top of my head, SOC standards, or there's international ones that people expect. Here's the gotcha though. I'm sure PowerSchool would have said, yeah, we're complying with all of that, right? It's until you get under the hood, you really don't know if the compliance is there. So one of the things we're putting in place is going forward, any new vendor we do business with must agree to a contract we've created that have these clauses in them. I can pull them out if people are interested in what we're saying must be in a contract. The real problem though is we're like little fleas to these vendors. They have zero interest in whether or not we want to use their program. So I don't know if that answers the question, but it is a hard question. And vendor compromise is one of the leading things we have to worry about.
Right. Oh yeah, actually another one just came in here.
Okay.
Should elected officials provide written authority for administrators to release their home phone numbers address?
Should elected officials, can you say it again?
Or elected officials provide written authority for administration to release their phone number or address?
Well, there has been a change here in Alberta regarding what's defined as personally identifiable information. And it used to be business card information was not considered personal. So your name and your phone number and your role in the organization was considered public, not personal. They changed their definition of PII to include those as being personal. So my business phone number, my image, my role, all of that stuff is personal. So I have a hard time imagining how they could disclose that information without consent. And I guess it depends on the purpose and the reason for which it was collected. But I'd be really up in arms if someone wanted to disclose my home address for some reason, right? We used to even put teachers' names and email addresses on our out-facing websites, and teachers just revolted. Like, I do not want that. I do not want myself out there in that way. So whoever asked that question, if you could give me the purpose for this disclosure, I could better answer the question.
Actually, there's a comment here Mike
Yeah.
made in chat going back to the emergency contact. The POPA 51D says that consent requirement does not apply when information collected is for emergency contact or other specified circumstances.
Awesome. Thank you. I've learned something new today. Whoever put that in, thank you very much. And there's so much to know, right? There's so much to know. Okay, let me continue with my presentation. Although I'm close to the end here, guys. So as a guardian or privacy officer, or just as an employee of a public body, it is a continuous journey, and there's bumps on the road for sure. And you have to use integrity and be a trustworthy steward of that personal information. It is hard when you're on the front lines and you're getting bombarded with people who want you to just give them this piece of information or that piece of information to always get it right. I do tell our frontline staff it's always perfectly fine and good to say, I don't know if I can release that. I'll have to get back to you. And sometimes people can be very demanding on the front lines, trying to get people to give information. So it is important that we, empower our frontline staff who deal with the public to say no. You're allowed to say no. You don't have to be helpful. You can say, I have to find out if I'm allowed to release that. We even have like a little script that our school frontline staff use, which is, I want to protect this child's personal information just as you would want me to protect it. I need to know who I'm disclosing to and whether I can before I can release it. So that's the ultimate rule. If you're ever in doubt, ask around. And I have to tell you, the compliance with privacy law is always a conversation. It gets complicated really quickly, and you need to talk it through with someone. So this is my ultimate guide to being a privacy expert. The best way to ensure that you're privacy pro, whenever anybody asks you a question about anything to do with privacy law, this is your answer. It depends. That's always correct, no matter what the question is. It depends on a lot of things, like what was your authority to collect this information? Is there personally identifiable information involved? Was this the purpose for which it was collected? Who is it being disclosed to? What's the legal authority to allow the disclosure, etc.? So this is a running joke with my team. The answer to every question is, it depends. So that comes to the end of my presentation. So since I'm a little bit early, I wanted to show you this infographic. I'm quite pleased about this. So I'm going to try clicking on it and see if it will open for me. Do you guys see my infographic?
Yep. Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. And this will be shared with you as well. But this is just trying to show you the life cycle of personal information, whether it's data, information, or record, and the responsibilities for collection, that you have the authority to collect. And if you're not sure, always ask. Collect only the minimum necessary. That's always a smart idea. that you're using it for the intended purpose, and that you only disclose when you have legal authority to do so. We have 4 ways we can disclose information outside of the school division, and we're trying to make sure we understand very well what is happening. And then protection and prevention in daily work, the need to know principle, the safeguards, and avoiding common privacy breaches. So I'll share this one with everybody after this presentation.
I threw some links in chat for the 2 resources there. We can post later as well.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yeah, the second one here is the privacy sheet. And I did try to give you kind of common definitions of the key concepts here, like what is privacy? And again, remember, whenever you see data, think data, information, records. Examples of PII, the data lifecycle. So hopefully everything I've discussed is here on the sheet as well. And then employee access, reasonable security arrangements, and privacy breaches. So that's a useful document even to give out to people at your workplace, just to give them a basic entry-level privacy understanding. And with that, I am done my presentation. So we have 10 or 15 minutes for questions.
I have a question, Leah.
Sure.
So, because some of the people I talk to across the country are also doing business in Alberta, they were very surprised to hear that Alberta had some new things happening in the privacy side. So, I guess I could ask you, what makes you lose sleep at night on the new privacy twist in the Alberta privacy side?
Sure. So I didn't get into this with you guys, but the new act and the new regulations around privacy now really embrace the idea of automated processing, or AI, and the use of personal information with AI. And I'm grateful, at least we're trying to get a handle on what that looks like or what it means. But there's a lot more new things around the concept of data. And that's why I've been trying to emphasize it can just be bits of stuff. It doesn't have to be a report or a record. And we use AI. I use AI all the time, but I don't use it with personal information. That intersection between personal information and AI, I find very concerning. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I have access to a huge database of student information, and I want to find out what are indicators that a student may not get their high school diploma. So I want to take all that data and clean it up and make it nice and throw it into a black box to figure out, does student X have a chance of getting their high school diploma or not, right? Well, the thing with AI is it truly is a black box. You've given it data. You don't know what it's doing with it inside there, right? So let's say we start saying, well, I'm sorry, Rick, your kid, we checked and they're not going to get their high school diploma anyway, so we're not letting them come to school at all. And you would probably say, wait a minute, how dare you prejudge my kid like that? You know, my kid can absolutely pass high school or university or whatever. So I have lots of concerns about the use of these huge collections of data that we have for this purpose, this predictive analytics. And I've certainly heard the Minister of Technology and Innovation talk about his intention to use Albertans' personal information to provide better service. I mean, it's always for better service. And that, you know, we're going to build these AI centers here in Alberta, and we've got lots of great data that we can throw in there to do things. That's lovely. What are the controls around that? So when it's whether or not your kid gets to come to school or whether or not you get to have a kidney transplant, like where are we okay with these tools making these kinds of decisions? From a more immediate standpoint, the rules around de-identifying data and the use of automated processing and the whole rest of it, I do find really onerous. It's uncharted territory for Albertans. I did find a good resource from B.C. OIPC about this. But yeah, I would say that's the side of things that I feel like our laws are not equal to the task. And sometimes I feel like privacy law is the only thing that keeps our whole lives being taken over by big tech, right? It's sort of our last defense against everything we do just being fodder for the mill.
Right.
Anyway, and you know what? I forgot to mention one thing I know you asked me to talk about, which was PIAs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want me to throw something
Yes,
in here?
please. Yep.
Sorry, guys, I meant to add this in, but I forgot. So one of the concepts that people are dealing with, there's the privacy management program, which is a big topic. But there's also this concept of a privacy impact assessment. It's now mandatory for innovative use and new services. So it used to be only Alberta Health Services had to do this. Now anybody under POPA in Alberta does. A privacy impact assessment, think of it as a checklist to ensure you've thought about the privacy risks of the new innovative software or platform or a service, combined service that you're putting in place. And you've thought about where people's personal information might be at risk. So you have a template where you describe why you're doing this, where the information is coming from and where it's going, and where the risks it could be disclosed inappropriately. And then you talk about how you're going to mitigate those risks. So a PIA is a governance exercise. Should be done before you jump into bed with anything like this. You've thought about, are you putting people's personal information at risk? Now we're expected to they have to go to the OIPC, but it's not for review. I forget the language, but in certain cases, you have to provide them to the OIPC. But it was point forward from when the law came in June 11th. Does that help with what a PIA is?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, Leah. And the other thing I heard from again, we were both at the same
Mhm.
conference that where the OIPC director talked about that new legislation. They said they were going to develop a template for that PIA. Has that
Mhm.
actually happened?
Not yet. Well,
Okay.
I'm waiting with bated breath. My plan is once that comes, I will develop as part of our PMP a protocol for that, right? But I don't want to do all the work. It is a ton of work until we have that information. Now, I see someone has raised their hand. Bassett, are you able to unmute yourself, or do you have to put it in as a question in the
I
chat?
I can unmute them if you'd like to talk
Sure,
there.
go ahead. Go ahead, Bassett.
You'll have to unmute your microphone on your end, but if you'd want to ask a question. I didn't I didn't notice that at first, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. I'm not used to Zoom, so I have a hard time finding the microphone.
You just mentioned that not-for-profit are not covered in Alberta.
Yeah.
How are they covered, I guess, when it comes to these issues?
I think it's wise to think of yourselves as being under PIPA and using that framework for, just good practices regarding personal information. My understanding from the OIPC is they will include not-for-profits under PIPA when they revise PIPA, which is apparently pending.
Good.
Okay.
Thanks. There's a
Thank you.
couple other questions here you want me to go through.
Sure, go ahead.
So should a chief electoral office signature be redacted from public documents? Like a mayor's signature?
I'm not sure. That question, there may be a legal requirement to have it on there. Of course, you can always go to an electronic signature that doesn't have a wet ink image on it.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess the concern might be that someone might copy it and use it for other purposes, but this is true all the time, all over the place, right?
Mhm.
Does anyone know if there's any legal framework around redacting someone's signature?
I'm not sure personally.
I'm not sure either. I know our superintendent signs things and his signature is out there. My signature is out there because I sign transcripts. Um, yeah,
Right.
yeah, no, it's a tricky one. I agree with you.
There's another question here. It kind of goes
Okay.
with this. Can you talk about personal information in the absence of name identity that can be disclosed without harm?
Can I give examples of personal identity that can be disclosed without harm?
Yeah, in the absence of name identity.
It's tricky. It's trickier than you know to think nobody could get back to the individual from this information, if that's what we mean by harm. And so I can interpret this question two ways. One is, can this piece of information, whatever it is, get me back to Lea Beeken? Is it sufficient? Is it enough information to get me back to her? If that's the harm, I would say it's hard to know because we're all walking around with these things, which are tracking all sorts of things about us, and it's all somewhere we don't know where and we have no control over it, right? I read recently that a kid who's given a smartphone at age 12, by the time they're an adult, they have 70 million data points about that individual captured by their phone. So what could you release and not have it come back to be connected to you? That's a hard question. I would err on the side of nothing. Personally, I would err on that side. If it is, does this information harm me particularly? Again, I think that's a kind of a personal discretion thing. So if you released Leah's got gray hair, I'm okay with that. I don't care. But if it was a big deal to me and I dyed it religiously every week, but Rick outed the fact that I have gray hair just like him, then it might damage my reputation. So it's tricky. What we feel is private is something that is personal too, right? People have their own sense of what I want to keep to myself and what I'm okay to disclose.
Great. That's a great answer, Leah.
Yeah.
Uh, On the going back to the PIAs just for a second, one question I
Mhm.
always have in my head is when I can see governments eventually saying that everybody should inventory every application they have in their systems and do a PIA for all of those applications. And I'm thinking what a nightmare from hell that would be actually to have to go back and do a PIA for every application that an organization has, knowing that they have probably 700 or 800 applications.
Yeah, I think that's the day I retire. But one thing we're doing, our approach to this is to leverage the power of records management, and where we know we are collecting information as records, information or data, and then there's this other concept called a personal information bank, often tied to platforms like PowerSchool or PeopleSoft or whatever, and using that same framework to figure out where all those things live. Are they in a document repository? Are they in a paper file folder? Are they in our PeopleSoft database?
Mhm, mhm.
And just do that throughout. If they came up with retroactive PIAs, I think we've done some work creating a template that's like a form that I'm going to update that makes it really slick to input the terms and conditions of that platform into the mill. Here's using AI for good. So rather than me reading that 200-page tedious document, I get AI to query it for the things I need to complete
Mhm,
my
mhm,
PIA. That's a big step up on that process.
mhm.
But it would be very labor intensive to do them all.
Well, thanks, Lee. That's great. We're getting pretty close to the top of the hour here too, and
Okay,
I want to thank you so much for a wonderful presentation.
my pleasure.
I thoroughly enjoyed it personally, and I'm sure everybody else did as well. Very well said, well spoken, great answers to questions, and really appreciate you doing this.
Hmm.
Uh, I I thank everybody for being on the presentation today. Thank you for supporting our Canadian content that we try to bring out to the entire country using information management, our IM Canada Connect series of sessions. And please keep coming. And it's important, I think, to our whole community across the country that we all support the IMCC events going forward. This will be recorded. Lea said it's fine to record, so it is recorded. It'll be posted on our website, the westernim.com website, as will the documents that Leah's brought forward as well. We'll put them up as well, post them as well. So thank you again, Lea.
My pleasure.
And I'll say happy holiday season for those that won't be at our holiday special on the 17th of December, but those that will, I'm looking forward to seeing you on our kind of normal holiday IMCC special that we do at Christmas every year. So
Sounds like fun.
everybody have a great rest of your week.
Okay, bye for now, everyone. Thanks for
Thanks
coming.
very much.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.